Welcome to a lesson with Dr. Powell. Let's take a look at solving another system of equations where these are the coefficients and this is what's on the other side of the equal sign. So we could think of the first line as reading negative 9x plus 1y plus 0z is equal to 2. Okay, so remember, our goal is to first get the first column looking like 1, 0, 0, and then getting the second column like 0, 1, 0, and the third column looking like 0, 0, 1. Along the way, the first thing to do in each column is to get the 1 into position and then use that to play against the other guys to get zeros. All right, so let's go for it. First, we got to get a 1 into position. How do we do that? Well, we can play with things a little bit. Already I see that if we simply multiply the bottom equation by negative 1 and then add that result to the middle equation, we'd have negative 8. And that looks pretty good right there. Let's just see what we get from that. So thinking of kind of a creative strategy to get 1, which is you can add rows together and then add that result to another one, or you could take one row and add it to another one. It takes a little bit of thinking. So this one is an example of some strategy that can be done. Here, if we multiply the bottom one by negative and add it to the middle one, I would get negative 8, 0, 1, and 2. Now, if we take this one and add it and actually and the top one, and we choose here to multiply the top one by a negative, and then add the results, notice we would get, on distributing the negative, let's do that. That would be a plus, minus, that's a minus, but then another minus there, and then we just can add. We'll get a 1, a negative 1, a 1, and a 0. So all this extra work only really needs to affect what we're replacing, not what we see right here. Notice how we took these, we added them, then we added them, and we added it to the top. We could just take the result of that and just replace one of the rows by the result of our playing, and that's perfectly fine. We just replace one of the rows with what we've done, just to keep things as simple as possible here. Okay, so let's see. We want to use, so we're going to take the top row and replace it by 1, minus 1, 1, 0. Okay. All right, so let's do that. Replace the top row by 1, minus 1, 1, 0. Now, we have the 1 in position. We can use this 1 now to play against that negative 5 and that 3. We can take the top row, multiply it by 5, and add it to this row right here, so that we'd end up with 0, and negative 5 plus 0 would give you negative 5. And 5 plus 2 would give you 7. And then 0 and plus 1 is just what it is. Okay, so we've successful at least using that 1 to get a 0 right here below it. Now we need to get this next part 0. So we take this top row and we multiply it by negative 3. And we then add the result to this bottom row here. So negative 3 plus 3 becomes a 0 down there. Then we have 3 plus 0 just give us a 3. Then we have -3 and 1 to give us -2. And a 0 and a -1 just keeps it the same. So we are successful at getting the first column looking like it should. Next, we got to get a 1 into position right here. Well, this also involves a little strategy to get a 1 right here. Now, perhaps the easiest way to get a 1 is simply just to divide this whole row by -5, and that would work. However, if we want to avoid using too many fractions, let's use some strategy. Now, we don't want to use the top row to add down because that would bring this 1 down into those zeros and mess up what we did. So we really just want to concentrate on the next 2 rows only. Okay, so just between the 2 of these, let's think about different combinations that would give us a 1 right here. Well, 3 and 5. Well, what if we multiplied the bottom row by 2 and then added it to that? I think that would work. So let's see. We multiply the bottom row by 2 and then add up, we get a 1. That worked. Okay. Then we take 2 times -3, that's -6 plus 7, that would be a 1. Okay. And then we take 2 times -1 plus 1, that would be a -1. Okay, so we got the 1 into position as desired, right here. All right. Next, let's take a look at how we can use that 1 to get zeros above and below. Notice we can take this row and add it to the top and down below and not affect this one here because we have this 0 going up and down. So we're just fine here to use this now to play above and below. So we need to multiply this middle row now by just simply 1 itself and add it to the top, and that'll get us a 0 there. So it'll give us 0 here. It'll give us 2 here. And it'll give us -1 right there. All right. Okay, so now we use this 1 to play against the 3 right below it. Okay, so we need to multiply not by 1 this time, but by -3. And that'll do it. So -3 and that 3 just becomes a 0. -3 and -3 become a -6. This -3 times -1 is just +3, plus a -1 would be a +2. And we have just succeeded in getting the second column looking just like as it should. All right, we're pretty close. Next, let's get a 1 into position here. Now, the best way to get a 1 into position in this column is we can't really use these rows up here to go down because that would have conflict in this one would be coming to the 0 and those zeros there, and that wouldn't be nice. So really the only thing we can do at this point is just divide. So we divide here by -6. And so dividing by -6, in this case, we're going to get over here, we do 2 divided by -6 is -1/3. Okay, -1/3. And this -6 is just 1 when we divide by -6 as desired. Okay, now we got the 1 into position. is one can play against what's above it to make those zeros. So let's do that. We can multiply the bottom row by negative and add it up. And that would make this become a 0 as desired. And then we have positive a third minus 1, which would give you negative 2/3. Okay, so we're almost there. Now, let's multiply the bottom row by negative 2 to play against. So this one can play against that 2. Negative 2. And that'll make that a 0 up there as desired. And then we have negative 2 times negative a third is positive 2/3. Positive 2/3 minus 1 is minus a third. So what we get is we get our solutions right here. This first equation translates as x equals negative a third. The next one, y is equal to negative 2/3. And the last one, z is equal to negative 1/3. Here are our solutions, and we have just solved the system of equations. Thanks for watching.